I just want to introduce myself. My name is Marie Crow. I am a member at large for the Saskatchewan Green Party. I'm also the constituency contact for the Elphinstone area. I'm from Hyapots First Nations, and yeah, I joined the Greens about sometime in 2012, and one of the main reasons why I joined the Greens is because I wanted something different, something fresh. I was tired of other politics, and just wanted a new direction to take the province in. So while I'm up here, I just want to take a few minutes to introduce a few of our members that are here at this moment. One being our leader, Victor Lau, and there's the Green Party First Lady who's sitting right there in the purple. That's Heather. There's Barry. He is the president of the Green Party there. His lady behind him. And there's Larry. Larry Neufeld over in the end there, if you want to stand up and give a wave to everybody. Okay, Larry is the constituency contact for the Lakeview, Regina area. And there's Serenity. She's also one of our Lakeview constituency contacts. And yeah, so that would be it. So there's us in a nutshell. Yeah, so I'm just going to turn the floor over to Victor and just allow him to take the lead as to where we're going for today. And at the end, we do have a Q&A with Victor. Feel free to ask your questions. You know, feel free to push our buttons if you feel the need to. At the end, there's coffee, there's tea, there's donuts, there's stuff that you can munch on. Feel free to, you know, come up, shake our hands. That's what we're here for. Okay, we do have forms available if you would like to become a member of the Green Party, or if you would just like to give us your information and meet us separately. You know, for coffee, we all love coffee. We love meeting people one-on-one for coffee. We're definitely into doing that. By all means, fill out the forms. And by then, just for now, I'll turn it over to Victor.
Well, thanks a lot for that introduction, Marie. I guess I can go over some of the things. Many of the people here do know me, but some of the people don't know how I got into politics, so I can go over that. I guess first of all, I was born right here in Saskatchewan, and I got married here, and I have 3 stepkids, 3 dogs, and a modest home with a big mortgage, much like anyone else. I got involved in politics at the University of Regina. I always thought that politics was a corrupt game. I did believe in the New Democrats for a short while. I thought they were the best of the worst, and I was a member for about 4 years. And I'm very thankful for that, having been a member of a mainstream party that could form and has formed government, and been able to see it from the inside, because I worked in virtually every capacity that you could think of, from doing lawn signs, fundraising, running, being a treasurer of a constituency for the deputy premier at the time. So, you know, I got to see kind of the inside of how a mainstream political party works. And it was very disappointing. Much like Marie, I had to leave. I left on different circumstances in terms of moving toward a new party such as the Greens. Specifically for me, it was the NDP's inability to kind of transition to really covering the environmental issues that I think are key to the future of this province as well as the future of the world. That, of course, is a primary domain of the Green Party. But part of the reason why we're here today is also to talk about what else does the Green Party represent, more than just the environment. Of course, we're concerned about the environment. I believe we have the best solutions for the environmental problem. But I think the one thing that people don't know about us is that we represent such a more broad view that we could basically encompass, and actually, if we were allowed to form government, change people's perspective on how we live and do business and how we kind of exist and coexist with everybody. Let's see some of the notes here. I guess one of the main things that I really appreciate about the Green Party is their position on uranium mining. That's what brought me into the NDP at the time. I think it was 1992 when I joined, and my friends at the university encouraged me to join because they were fighting to keep anti-uranium policy in the New Democratic Party policy book. And the mainstream of the party wanted that out because they didn't want to have that fight. They didn't want to close down any mines. They wanted to continue business as usual. And I never did go to a convention, but I watched what happened on TV, and it was really sad. The resolution to remove it basically passed by 51% and 49% against. So I kind of shrugged and said, well, you know, that's the way these things go, and you know, we got to keep plugging in. And at that time, a lot of people that were very more green than perhaps myself left the NDP because they were very furious over the fact that they had supported that party to close down the uranium mining, to begin the phase out. That's why I like the Green Party. Our position is very clear from the get-go. If we were forming government, we would get rid of uranium mining. We're not interested in nuclear power. We put in a ban on that, and nuclear waste. We're working with our allies like Idle No More and other northerners to stop that process of development up north. Other positions, we're also against genetically modified organisms. I think the massive pollution of our processed foods, it's shocking. We need labeling, but our government, of course, would implement a ban on that. We think that's just too dangerous to mess around with. One thing we share in common with the New Democrats, though I'm not sure how far they would go, is we certainly have taken the stance in the last election that we're, as a Green Party, totally against any privatization of the healthcare system. We would keep the healthcare system public. One example is we would like to reinsure ambulance fees, bring that back under Medicare. I'm not totally sure if it was the NDP that de-insured that, but it's a shock to many people when you end up using the ambulance service that you have to actually pay out of pocket. It's not covered. We would like to expand coverage to include things like dental, optical, alternative medicine. One thing we campaigned on, which was really, I think, the future for this province, let alone the future of Canada's energy production method, is renewables. We think, just like Germany, in a short time, if we were to devote the right amount of resources, we can basically run the whole province on 100% renewables. If Germany can do it and other countries are moving toward that, I don't see why Saskatchewan can't do that. I think it's a lack of political will, not a lack of ability. One of our more popular positions, a lot of people are concerned about what any incoming government would do on Crown corporations. Our position is we realize that people really love the Crown corporations. They provide a good service for the Saskatchewan people. They try and provide a reasonable amount of fee. What we'd like to do is convert them into Crown cooperatives so that citizens have more direct say. They could elect the board, perhaps control the salaries of the board members, for the annual general meeting, more open books so that people can see what is happening, how much they actually take in and how they spend it. One thing that's very popular is instead of allowing the provincial government, which is currently doing this, raiding the Crown corporations for extra revenue, is the money, if there is a profit in SaskTel, or SaskPower, or Sask Energy, basically a dividend check would be basically cut and given back to the citizens that use SaskTel. So instead of feeling gouged when you get charged more for SaskTel services or SaskPower, at the end of the day, just like any cooperative, if there is a profit, you, the user, would get it back. And we're finding a lot of people are starting to warm up to that idea, so we're hoping that becomes a big issue kind of in the future. I could go on and on, really, but I'd like to just, at this point, just open it up to the floor for questions, if people have any questions, and let's talk about how we can basically elect a new Green Party government. I think we have a lot of work to do on the ground. We're starting to continue to do that work. We've got the month of April pretty much all weekends booked up. We're going to be traveling around the province and talking to people about why it's important to vote for the Green Party. I don't know why it's important to kind of start making a difference in terms of getting active again. It seems a lot of people out there have just given up on politics. They hope that something good will happen and they just choose not to vote. And we hope to encourage people to get back out there and at least mark an X on the ballot. And otherwise, any incoming government is going to be very illegitimate, and we want to change that. So, thanks a lot.
All right, so this is the part where we could open up the floor for questions. If you have questions, by all means. You're really tall, Victor. Taller than I am. But yeah, if you have questions you would like to ask Victor, then by all means, stand up, shoot out your question, and then, let's answer away.
use this mic, I guess. Yeah, sure. That's something I've been campaigning for a long time. It's something that is, I think, going to come eventually. There's a lot of factors that are kind of worldwide. The idea of more and more unemployment, the idea that people shouldn't have to basically starve when they lose their employment, or if they get cancer, or perhaps they have to be a caregiver for their children or their parents. So there's a lot of generational and demographical kind of pressures. The specifics, basically Alaska is probably the closest model. It currently does exist there. They take about 9% of all resources that come out of the ground and tax it and put it into a heritage fund or a savings fund, sovereign fund, different names. And then they do the investing on the market, just like any other kind of pension fund would do. And then they do a 5-year average, and then they pay it out. And so that can fluctuate. So it's gotten as high as, I think, $1,200 per man, woman, and child. Anybody that's an Alaskan citizen gets paid that. But because it's a 5-year average, every year it can change. So it's dropped as low as, like, I think, $400 or $500, that kind of thing. But what was interesting there is the former governor of Alaska, Jay Hammond, who started that. He was still alive at the time. I think he's died, I think, 3 years ago now. But he said that if we moved it from 9% of all resource taxation, just double it to 18, they could create a guaranteed livable income. They could actually pay out an income that would be livable. So because Saskatchewan has such a huge bounty of resources, you know, including uranium at this point, I think we could do it. Like, we just have to change the resource royalty structure and start putting that money away. And, you know, it may not happen over the 4-year term of our government or a government, but certainly it could be done. And we believe that not only would be better to have a guaranteed livable income with no strings attached, but from there we can actually downsize some of the government services that no longer would be needed, and it actually would save the government money, kind of thing. So.
Hey, anybody else?
One of the big issues that's happening in Regina right now is affordable housing, and also in Saskatchewan. What would the Green Party do to address that issue there?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've been going around, and in the last election, we tried to put out there that we don't mind working with the private sector. If we were to form provincial government, we think the private sector does have resources and talent and skill that they could bring to the table. The question is getting them to take it seriously, that this is a humanitarian crisis, that as part of our community, they should actually work with government to implement that housing strategy. However, barring that, if we can't motivate through the provincial government, through incentives and so on, to have the private sector step in and build these housing, then I think it's up to a Saskatchewan government to put those necessary resources out there and, right away and actually build social housing. Ideally, what we're talking about is actually building housing that people can own, affordable housing units, maybe smaller condo-sized kind of units. But I don't know. I'm very disappointed in this mayor, not Fiacco now, it's Fougere, but this housing summit. It sounds like it's going to be another gab fest. I couldn't believe they're charging $250 for every person that wants to go to this. I mean, obviously that leaves out the homeless, the poor, people that are renters. Most like it's basically going to be, people in the industry. And my question would be, what are these people paying to get for $250? Is it an inside, kind of idea of how the government's going to help them make a lot of money off this? Once again, it doesn't seem to be an open process, and that's what we're all about, is an open process and coming together and finding out the solutions.
Thank you. Hey?
I've noticed that one of the major problems in most governments is the shady deals that take place between government officials and wealthy individuals behind closed doors. What do you think the Green Party has to offer to make more these things more open? Any dealing with the private sector and the public sector together to make those things more open.
Yeah, for sure. There's two immediate things come to mind. We've got lots of policy on things like that, but one thing for sure we could do is to get a lot of money out of politics is to basically ban corporate and union donations. Only individuals should be allowed to donate, and those individuals should also be limited to the amount they can donate, much like the federal, I think the federal government has done. You know, I think the limit is, well, I think it's actually still high, but in terms of the tax credit, you only get so much up to, I think, $1,100. But in terms of actually, you know, those private meetings, I think Finland was the one, their government is federally, it's very transparent. And that's something we would like to bring to our provincial government is transparency legislation. So you can't have these kind of, you know, closed door sessions. A lot of stuff would have to be monitored. Maybe you have a lobbyist list, that kind of thing. But you're right. I mean, that's something that needs to be explored, because as long as you have multimillionaires that can basically buy off a government official or a political party, you can't get the government influence out of it. And that's something I really want to stress to people out there that are perhaps watching this or hearing from it. The Green Party at this point does not accept corporate or union donations. We're totally funded by individuals, and we have a hell of a time trying to compete with the major parties that do take corporate funding to the tunes of millions of dollars. So if you don't see, you know, a full-fledged campaign, that's the reason why we don't have the millions to spend on it, and that needs to change if we're going to have a really, you know, truly democratic system.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else would like to ask a question of Victor?
Well, they have different various forms of a guaranteed income. Most of the people I met when I was at poverty forums and international conferences, they wouldn't call it a guaranteed livable income because there was work requirements, either voluntary work or actual work requirements. But in Europe, there is a leveling up where they try and have a social security system that if you are, you know, either unemployed or, you know, fallen by the wayside for whatever reason, mental health issues, that kind of stuff, you are kind of, you know, given an income. The problem is, you know, is there a work requirement? We feel that it should be a citizen's entitlement. If you're going to have a government, I think that's the bare minimum a government should give you outside of all these other things like, you know, an education, social structures like roads and so on. I mean, healthcare. But a guaranteed income that would level people's kind of playing field really high. Like then people can't, you know, they would have enough to eat. They would hopefully be able to afford rent. They could participate in the mainstream of society instead of becoming more and more marginalized. And if you look around the world, places that have more and more marginalization, you're just getting, you know, worse and worse political participation. Things are not, the outcomes are not good. So.
Hey, I do believe you had a question.
Patrick Smythe, current president of the Walsh Acres constituency. I've been involved in the Green Party federally and provincially, first in D.C. and now here for over 15 years. And it's always struck me, you touched on it in your opening, it's always struck me that for the Green Party, one of the biggest resources or populations, demographics that we could appeal to for growth is the disenfranchised, you know, people who dropped out, either disenfranchised, as you just said, for economic reasons, or marginalized due to ethnic origin, or because they're young. Principally, I see those as the three major sort of groupings that the Green Party could really appeal to. The problem for me has always been as a political party to appeal to apathetic or politically alienated people. It's very hard to you know, engage and develop a rapport. And I'm curious, I don't know, maybe we could have a, you know, an open discussion of this sometime, brainstorming session. But I'm curious if the party has any ideas about strategies to reach out to those people.
Well, I think part of it is holding more forums like this. You know, we're going to try and get out to those communities. Marie has a lot of, you know, kind of contacts with the Aboriginal population, and so we'd like to hold, like we basically have issued a kind of a letters to various groups too, to say, look, if we would like to see, you know, myself, the Green Party leader, come out and give a short presentation, open questions, we'd love to come out, you know, 5 minutes on the agenda. Specifically, you're right, I think, Patrick, the disenfranchised are very hard to reach because when I was a young radical, I didn't realize this. I had a naive idea that, you know, if we just cut out food banks, we just eliminate the food banks, there'd be a social revolution overnight. And there was a wiser person who had been in politics longer, and he said, well, that could lead to just rioting. It may not lead to the positive, progressive social change we want. And I think that's true. Having been in circumstances of poverty, it is very hard to focus on anything else other than survival. And I think a lot of political parties that have power don't care. They like that. It's great. That demographic either will vote or not vote, and as long as they can control it and isolate it, they don't care. And of course, part of the strategy, I think, for the Greens to engage those people back into the political process is to not only help them as much as we can with the knowledge that we have, but also kind of empower them, show them that, look, we're not just about getting someone elected. We're about actually changing, the social systems that are out there in the community. A lot of us are volunteers, right? Some of us are volunteers in the trade union movement. Some of us are volunteers in anti-poverty groups and so on, like my wife. So I think that's where the credibility kind of connects. We're not just a bunch of rich people here to interested in getting elected and then taking power and doing virtually nothing. We're interested in actually fixing the problems, whether we're in government or out. And that hopefully that can sometime connect and appeal to those people.
I have something to say in relation to what Patrick said. I was born and raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Not anymore, but most of my childhood, I went from door to door and tried to teach people their religion. And I believed in that quite wholeheartedly. And regardless of, most people are apathetic, but in dealing with that, I think that's really, it was really a productive method for understanding what other people think about the government. So if you go and do exactly what the Jehovah's Witnesses do and knock on their door, talk to people individually, take the time to show them that you care about what they think, vice versa, then a lot of the apathy will be.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that is one way to do it, is to connect one-on-one. It takes a lot more work, but in the long run, that's probably a lot more rewarding, in terms of getting more kind of Green supporters and Green members and that kind of things.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Victor there?
There's just been Dauphin, Manitoba, I believe, did an experiment in the 1970s alongside with an American experiment. So there's a professor at the University of Manitoba, I think, Evelyn Forget. She's actually researching the data, and everything that comes out that I've been reading anyway shows that the outcomes are very progressive. People don't just sit around at home and do nothing. They actually sit around at home and actually are taking care of the kids, or basically cleaning up the house and doing laundry and so on and so forth. Other people basically are able to basically subsist on the guaranteed income and also go out there and find other jobs and actually do more. And this is why I think it's eventually coming. All the studies that are happening in India right now and have happened in Africa show that the guaranteed livable income, if done properly, just given out and no stipulation, it doesn't show that people are just, 80% of the group becomes lazy and just sits around and waits for the next check. They actually go out there and basically involve themselves as part of the community again, because they can. They can go shopping. They can go out for a night on the town, and go to a restaurant, that kind of thing. They can basically become normal, like people that have a steady income. The one statistic I really would like to point out is that was surprising, I think, for conservatives as well as for everybody watching the experiment in Nigeria, was that the largest positive statistic, so education rates went up, people got their kids to school, people going to work went up, so on and so forth, health outcomes were more positive, but the largest increase in the Nigerian experiment was, I think 15% of people took the guaranteed income and actually created new employment. They actually created their own small businesses and started employing their fellow brothers and sisters out there. And so that was a huge, I think, surprise for everyone, because everybody thought they'd spend money into the economy, but nobody thought they'd be, inventive enough to actually take this small guaranteed income and create businesses. So that is, I think, where, like, there's almost no arguments now. And I think even in Canada, it's a matter of time before we start moving down this road. It's just a better way to, basically spend our tax dollars on eliminating poverty.
Okay, anybody else?
Like I've been living here, like I'm from Paul, Manitoba. I've been here for 10 years, but I'm on welfare too, and then I got the set program going in.
Okay.
I find it, so many of my friends disqualified for setting, and it's just crushing to them, eh?
Yes.
And they're just really bothered, and they're disabled.
Yeah.
And physically, it's major. I have one friend that's in a wheelchair, and he got denied.
Yeah.
And I know he's just devastated. He
Yeah.
said, I should qualify for that. Well, you should.
Exactly.
And he said, look, I found out, like a lot of my friends, a big majority of my friends got denied from the set. They don't know what to do. They just like, well, they're trying to reach out, but they're just keep on getting denied services.
Yeah.
And a couple of my friends have moved back to Winnipeg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it doesn't help because of the elimination of the film pastor, people like myself that do background work, and I don't know what to do now. Should I move back to Winnipeg just to leave the province? Because I don't think it's coming back or what.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a clear difference too. It's nice that the Sask Party, and it's a conservative government, that they actually created and implemented the SED program, the Saskatchewan Assured Income for Disabled People, and they just recently in this budget they added a little bit more. I think it was like $50 extra a month. But when we were debating them on this in the November 2011 election, it was startling how the Sask Party representative, who was the Minister for Social Welfare, specifically said, with this program, we will basically fund those that are deserving, and those that are not will not get funded. And of course, our position was, look, this is such a wonderful program. It's helping at least some people, on disabled people. Why wouldn't you just make it universal? Right, expand it. There shouldn't be such a tight criteria, and it's disheartening, Joey. I think one thing you can do is those people that are still around, ask them to come out to meetings like this, so we can talk to them. Get their stories down, so we can use this against the government. Say, well, look, here you have, criteria, and are you denying these people specifically for political reasons? Like, I mean, if someone in a wheelchair, well, you'd think they'd get some qualification. As well, we really want universality. I know. At that debate, there was a person from the Saskatchewan Deaf Association, and he specifically wanted us to contact him afterwards because they were, most of their members, if not all their members, were denied. Because the government was saying that deafness is not really a disability. That's not really, and so it was kind of like that guy, he was angry, like he was just giving it to the minister when they were, when they're at the debate. So anyway, we wanted to follow up on that, but our idea is to take the SED program and if not directly expand that, certainly add on to it and make sure everyone gets an equal income kind of thing.
Yeah, I just want to add something to this. I heard a saying, how do you eat an elephant? How does one person eat an elephant? I mean, and the thing is, if you look at the size of an elephant, it's pretty big. One person can't eat that elephant, but I mean, if you get a group, community, a city, and believe me, that elephant's going to shrink. So, I mean, the more people that you guys invite out to these meetings and the more people that join up with us, like, I mean, even if your views are different, your viewpoints on what you feel, on where you want to go with things, by all means, put them in, but I mean, we all have one goal in mind. We want to see Canada be better. We want to see the world be better. We want to see our communities be stronger. We want to be able to live, just simply live, in this province, just, so others can simply live. I mean, and the more people you guys invite out to these meetings, the better that we can do for the rest of everybody else, so. But anyway, do we have any other questions out there?
Yeah, sure.
Our fair premier recently announced that northern residents didn't require government programs, they require Cameco.
Yes.
Operating under the assumption that that's not your philosophy. What would the Green Party, if you could just provide just a thumbnail sketch of what your major macroeconomic policies and philosophy might be?
For the northern, specifically, the northern strategy?
In general, but certainly including the northern.
Yeah, well, certainly, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of poverty in certain areas up north, and I think this is the power grab that they're trying to play. They're trying to say that if we can bring Cameco, enough kind of cutbacks, I guess, in terms of royalty cutbacks and stuff, they will create the necessary middle income jobs, and there'll be so much prosperity up north. Unfortunately, that probably will come with a nuclear waste disposal unit and a lot of problems 20, 30 years down the road. By then, this government will be gone, and they'll probably be rich and have gotten all their paybacks. But what we try and go, and we haven't gotten up north yet, but some of our members have. have talked to the Idle No More movement and said, look, not only is the guaranteed income one way to protect your communities, and traditional lifestyles, but if we were to create jobs, and if the community wants those jobs, working with them, we'd basically go into, green tech jobs, solar, wind, biomass, create the future kind of, power production facilities and so on, and sell it to the world. Like, that's the kind of future we want. I think uranium and nuclear power is a dead end. It's just a matter of time. If people don't know now, they certainly should know that the provincial government heavily subsidizes northern mining and uranium mining in particular. So even if we form government, just remove those subsidies, said, you're allowed to function if you can, function on your own, they would just collapse overnight. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we'd kind of look at.
So you divert subsidies from obviously some of the existing, as you say, mining and obviously and then.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, the main thing we would want to review is what is the northern strategy that if we were an incoming government, what is the northern strategy that these guys had, and how can we divert that and make it sustainable, amenable to the communities up there? Right now, there's almost I would call a civil war, a war of attrition. There's a large group of people that are opposed to uranium mining and further uranium mining and nuclear waste disposal, and then there's a small group of power brokers that are elected currently anyway, and they're trying to maintain control. There's a gag order saying that Pine House residents are not allowed to speak against this, and we think that's just appalling that elected officials could gag their own citizens. We wouldn't tolerate it down here in the south. Why should we tolerate it up north? So yeah, we have a totally different approach. We want to work with the communities on the ground to create the type of jobs that they feel proud and want in their communities, not force jobs into those communities that they don't want.
Hey, anybody else?
I have a question about education. Like in the recent budget that came out, the University of Regina, they were very disappointed in what they got basically for funding. The president put a positive spin on it, but it really was a lot of what was really needed. So what would be the Green Party of Saskatchewan strategy when it comes to education? What would you be putting into it? What would you do to make it more accessible and to everybody basically in the province?
Yeah, this is one of the most fundamental differences between the Green Party, New Democrats, and the Sask Party. The Sask Party supposedly believes in the free market, and they would like to, seemingly open up everything, education, sewage, roads, water, everything to the private sector. They think the private sector can virtually do no wrong, right? As long as the private sector can bring in their money and invest in it, everything will go well. The NDP, seemingly on the opposite side, believes government can do no wrong. We should basically socialize everything. In the long term, they seem to believe, not all of them, I was a member at one time, and there are some diverging viewpoints, but if you go back down to their core principles and their constitution, they believe that socialization of everything is a good thing. So I used to work at a superstore in grocery sector, so they believe that nationalization of the grocery sector would work. I don't know. I think as Greens, we're kind of coming in between those two extremes. We're trying to say that there's an approach that can work where if we talk to the people that are involved, whether it's the university residents or the students, and work with them to design a model of education and education funding that works for them, and if we can get the right resources to them, then everything should work. There shouldn't be too many complaints. Our position, of course, is universal tuition. We don't feel that students should have to pay money up front and then get it back later. It is very interesting the Sask Party has done that. They've kind of created a reverse tuition model where as long as you can come up with the money and graduate and stay in the province, year after year, you should get your tuition back. We're just kind of making it easier and say, look, we believe students should be educated. They shouldn't be in direct, massive hardship. Let's find the money to do it. At the time, we estimated it was something like $260 million in a provincial budget. Probably escalated to maybe half a billion, maybe $1 billion. But in a $12 billion budget, $1 billion to educate every citizen of Saskatchewan freely, I think that's well worth it in the long run. We're just going to have more prosperity all around. So that's generally our position, kind of thing, on education.
Okay. Anybody else have a question for Victor? All right. Well, we just want to conclude this this part of the the meeting then. I guess I'm going to close off and just saying thank you for coming. And if you guys are more than welcome to stay around and chat with us. And as I said, that there are forums there over in the back. If you would like more information about the Greens or policies or anything like that, feel free to look us up on the website at saskgreens.ca. There is coffee here, there's donuts here, there's sandwiches here. Eat. And yeah, just feel free to poke a few of our buttons.
Thanks for coming out, everybody.
Yeah.